The Kang Empire ship hung silently above Earth, its sleek metal hull reflecting the blue planet below. Admiral Tay stood before the main viewing screen, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the command deck. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. As images of human cities, vehicles, and daily activities flashed before him, 3 days of observation is enough, Admiral Tay announced to his officers. These humans are weak creatures. Look at their thin skin, no natural protection. Their weapons are primitive. They still use combustion and projectiles. He zoomed in on a busy street in Seoul, watching people going about their daily lives. They will make excellent labor for our mining operations. The other officers nodded in agreement. None questioned the Admiral's assessment. The Kang Empire had conquered 17 worlds before Earth, and none had offered meaningful resistance. Commander Han, prepare the first landing force, Admiral Tay ordered. Take 500 soldiers and secure a base outside their city of Seoul. Their military response should be minimal, but follow standard protocols. Commander Han bowed slightly. It will be done, Admiral. We should have control of their communication networks within hours. The Kang landing ships descended through Earth's atmosphere under cover of night, their advanced cloaking technology hiding them from human detection systems. They touched down in a clearing 30 kilometers from Seoul, deployment ramps extending smoothly onto Korean soil. Commander Han led his troops out, their armor gleaming under the moonlight. Set up the command post here, he instructed. Reconnaissance teams, move out and map the surrounding area. Remember, capture humans for study, when possible. The first signs of trouble came 3 hours after landing. A reconnaissance team failed to report back on schedule. Then another. Commander Han frowned at his communication screen. Base to Team 4, report status, he barked. The response came through broken and static-filled. Sir, humans ambushed us, near a rural settlement. They're not running, they're fighting back with farm tools and hunting weapons. We've lost half the team already. The transmission cut off abruptly. Commander Han immediately contacted the orbiting flagship. Admiral, we're encountering unexpected resistance. The humans are organizing quickly, using improvised weapons. To request immediate reinforcements. Admiral Tay's face showed disbelief. Improvised weapons against our armor and pulse rifles? Handle the situation, Commander. These are primitive beings. Sir, you don't understand. They're not afraid. They're... Commander Han turned suddenly as explosions rocked the command post. The transmission to the flagship dissolved into static. On his ship, Admiral Tay watched in growing horror as the life signatures of his landing force began disappearing from the tactical display. Within 6 hours, every soldier in the first wave had been neutralized. Orbital scans showed groups of humans, ordinary civilians without military uniforms, moving through the forests, carrying captured Kang weapons alongside their own. Impossible, whispered Lieutenant Joe, the tactical officer. How could they learn to use our weapons so quickly? Admiral Tay slammed his fist against the command console. This makes no sense. Their bodies are fragile. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Commander Han must have violated protocols. The science officer, a smaller Kang named Officer Sun, cleared his throat nervously. Admiral, preliminary analysis suggests the humans are demonstrating unusual adaptive capabilities. They appear to be communicating and coordinating their resistance with remarkable speed. I won't accept that a species with no natural defenses could defeat Kang warriors, Admiral Tay growled. Prepare a full battalion, 1,000 of our best soldiers with heavy weapons support. Commander Han was simply incompetent. As the second wave prepared for deployment, Admiral Tay studied the humans more carefully. Something about these creatures bothered him. Unlike other species the Kang had conquered, these humans showed no period of shock or paralysis after first contact. Instead, they had immediately organized and fought back with whatever tools were available. Deploy to multiple landing sites, he ordered. Don't give them time to prepare. As the ships departed, Officer Sun approached the Admiral again. Sir, I've been analyzing their communications. They're already sharing information about our weapons, our tactics. They're learning at an alarming rate. Admiral Tay dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. No species learns warfare in a day, Officer Sun. Our battalion will crush their resistance before their primitive minds can comprehend what they're facing. But as the second wave of ships entered Earth's atmosphere, Admiral Tay couldn't shake a growing feeling of unease. He remembered stories from the early days of Kang expansion, tales of a planet where the native species had fought back so fiercely that the first Kang explorers had named them Death Worlders. It cannot be, he muttered to himself. These humans look so harmless. On the main screen, the second wave of ships began their descent toward Earth. Admiral Tay watched, his confidence beginning to waver for the first time in his long military career. Perhaps these humans were more dangerous than they appeared. Perhaps this simple conquest was about to become something much more complicated. As the ships disappeared into the atmosphere, Admiral Tay made a silent promise to himself. If this wave failed, he would no longer underestimate these strange creatures called humans. Next time he would bring the full might of the Kang Empire down upon their world. The second wave of Kang ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, targeting major cities across the planet. This time Admiral Tay watched the battle feeds directly from his command center, confident that overwhelming force would crush the human resistance quickly. All landing teams report successful deployment, Lieutenant Joe announced. Ground forces engaging human defenders in Seoul, New York, London, Mumbai, and Sydney. Admiral Tay nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. They cannot organize effectively across such distances. Begin the secondary phase. But within hours, the confident atmosphere on the command ship began to shift. The battle feeds showed something completely unexpected. Humans weren't running or hiding. They were fighting back with surprising effectiveness. Seoul team, report status, Admiral Tay demanded, leaning forward in his command chair. Captain Kim's face appeared on screen, her normally composed features tight with stress. Sounds of weapons fire echoed behind her. Admiral, we're facing heavy resistance. These humans, they're not fighting like primitives. They're coordinating, setting traps, using terrain to their advantage. She ducked as an explosion rocked her position. Some of them have already figured out how to use our pulse rifles. That's impossible, Admiral Tay snapped. Those weapons are coded to Kang biosignatures. They've bypassed it somehow, Captain, Kim replied. They're using our own weapons against us. Her transmission suddenly cut to static as the feed went dead. One by one, similar reports came in from the other landing sites before communications were lost. The tactical display showed Kang life signs disappearing at an alarming rate. Pull up the last visual feeds, Admiral Tay ordered, his voice growing tense. The screens filled with chaotic battle scenes. In New York, humans had created barricades from vehicles and were using them as cover while firing captured Kang weapons. In Sydney, a group of humans had somehow reprogrammed a Kang combat drone and turned it against its makers. In London, civilians were working alongside military personnel, adapting tactics on the fly as they fought. How is this possible, Lieutenant? Joe whispered. They have no unified military command structure, yet they're fighting as one. Admiral Tay slammed his fist down. Emergency War Council, now! The Kang officers gathered in the ship's strategy room, the atmosphere heavy with an emotion unfamiliar to their species, doubt. Science Officer Park stood before a holographic display showing human biological scans. I've been analyzing everything we know about these humans, she began, and I've made some disturbing discoveries. The display zoomed in on a human skeletal structure. Their physical form evolved for something called persistence hunting. Unlike most predator species who rely on speed or strength for quick kills, humans evolved to simply outlast their prey. Explain, demanded Admiral Tay. They can sweat to cool their bodies, allowing them to keep moving when other species would. Overheat. Their legs evolved for efficient long-distance running. But most importantly, she highlighted the human brain, they developed advanced problem-solving skills to track and predict prey behavior. Officer Park switched the display to footage of humans dismantling Kang technology. These traits make them uniquely dangerous. They don't tire easily in battle. They adapt quickly to new situations, and their social structure allows rapid information sharing. That doesn't explain how they're defeating our superior technology, Lieutenant Joe argued. Officer Park's expression grew even more serious. We've intercepted their communications. They're capturing our soldiers alive, not for mercy, but for interrogation and to study our technology. One human group has already reverse-engineered our communication systems. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Most species we've conquered either flee or fight predictably, Officer Park continued. Humans do neither. They watch, learn, adapt, and improve, all during active combat. Their history is filled with examples of weaker human groups defeating technologically superior forces through adaptation and unconventional tactics. Admiral Tay paced the room, his confidence shaken. So, what are you suggesting? That we retreat? The Kang Empire has never retreated. Not retreat, Officer Park replied carefully. But we need to reassess. These aren't the simple primitives we thought they were. If we continue underestimating them, we risk losing more than just soldiers. The emergency meeting was interrupted by the tactical officer rushing in. Admiral, we've lost contact with all ground forces and our sensors detect human aircraft approaching several of our landing ships. Admiral Tay hurried back to the command center, where the main screen showed grainy footage of human fighter jets dropping bombs on a grounded Kang vessel. Most bounced harmlessly off the ship's armor, but one found a weak point, the landing gear housing, and penetrated, causing significant damage. They found a structural weakness, Officer Sun noted with disbelief. In less than a day, Admiral Tay watched as humans swarmed the damaged ship. They're learning too quickly, he muttered. We've never encountered a species that adapts during battle. Later that night, Admiral Tay stood alone at the viewing window, looking down at the blue planet that had so thoroughly defied his expectations. In just 2 days, the humans had gone from discovering alien life existed to effectively fighting back against what should have been overwhelming odds. What kind of world creates such creatures? He wondered aloud. What kind of evolution produces a species that thrives on challenge? Behind him, the tactical display continued to track the loss of Kang forces on the surface. Each dot that vanished represented another soldier and more technology in human hands. The longer this continued, the more dangerous these humans would become. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Tay felt something close to fear. Not fear of defeat. The Kang Empire was vast, and this was just the vanguard force. But fear of something worse, an enemy that grew stronger. With each encounter, he would need to rethink everything about this invasion. The standard Kang conquest protocols clearly wouldn't work against humans. This would require something new, something different. And time, Admiral Tay realized with growing concern, might already be running out. 3 weeks after the Kang invasion began, the United Nations Security Council convened in an underground bunker beneath Geneva. Representatives from every nation sat together, old rivalries temporarily forgotten in the face of extinction. We are no longer Russians, Americans, Chinese, or Nigerians, announced the Secretary General. From this day forward, we are simply humans fighting for our survival. The assembly erupted in unanimous approval. On the screen behind the podium, satellite images showed Kang warships forming a blockade around Earth. After 2 failed invasion attempts, Admiral Tay had changed tactics. He would isolate Earth, cut off resources, and wait for the humans to weaken. He didn't understand what hunger did to human determination. In a repurposed automotive factory in South Korea, Dr. June wiped sweat from her brow as she studied the disassembled components of a Kang pulse rifle. Around her, a team of scientists from 7 countries worked tirelessly, each focused on different aspects of the alien technology. Look at this power cell, she said, holding up a glowing blue cylinder. It generates 10 times the energy of our best batteries, and it's half the size. Across the room, Professor Lee examined the rifle's targeting system under a microscope. The neural interface is brilliant but limited. It's designed specifically for Kang physiology. That's why they thought we couldn't use their weapons, Dr. June smiled. They don't understand human ingenuity. We don't need to replicate their interface. We just need to create our own version. This scene was repeating across the planet. In Brazil, engineers were reverse engineering Kang propulsion systems. In India, computer scientists were decoding alien communication protocols. In Canada, metallurgists were analyzing the composition of Kang ship hulls. Within the first month, humans had salvaged enough alien technology to begin production of hybrid weapons that combined Earth materials with Kang designs. The first breakthrough came when Dr. June's team created a human-usable version of the pulse rifle that could be mass-produced in converted small arms factories. The second breakthrough came from an unexpected source. "You need to see this," Professor Lee said, bursting into Dr. June's lab one morning. He laid out schematics of what appeared to be a spacecraft. "Where did you get these?" she asked, studying the designs. "From a video game developer in Tokyo." He analyzed the flight patterns of the Kang ships and realized their maneuverability indicates a fundamental difference in how they approach physics. Dr. June looked skeptical. "A video game developer? He's been designing space combat simulators for 15 years. He understands three-dimensional tactical movement better than most military pilots." The designer's insights proved invaluable. Within days, his analysis was being incorporated into what would become humanity's desperate counterstrike. Aboard his command ship, Admiral Tay observed the blockade with satisfaction. "The humans have gone quiet," he noted to his officers. "Our strategy is working. Without access to space resources, their industry will collapse within months. Our scans show decreased activity in their major cities," Lieutenant Doe confirmed. "The psychological impact of isolation appears to be having the desired effect." Admiral Tay nodded. "Once their food reserves begin to dwindle, they'll become desperate. Then we'll accept their surrender." What Admiral Tay didn't realize was that the decreased activity in cities was because manufacturing had shifted to underground facilities hardened against orbital scans. The apparent disorganization was deliberate, a screen to hide the unprecedented global cooperation taking place beneath the surface. 6 weeks into the blockade, Admiral Tay received an urgent alert. "Sir, we're detecting launches from multiple points on the planet's surface." The main screen displayed dozens of objects rising from Earth's atmosphere. They didn't match any known human spacecraft designs. "Analysis!" Admiral Tay demanded. "Officer." Sun studied the readings with disbelief. They appear to be crude spacecraft constructed from our own landing vessel components, combined with human technology. "Impossible," Admiral Tay whispered, but the evidence was before his eyes. The cobbled-together fleet of human ships rose to meet the blockade. They weren't elegant or sophisticated, but they were armed with modified Kang weapons and powered by salvaged alien engines. "Defensive positions," Admiral Tay ordered. "Prepare to repel primitive attackers." But what happened next defied all Kang military doctrine. The human ships didn't form orderly attack patterns. They didn't maintain safe distances. They accelerated directly toward the Kang vessels at speeds that seemed suicidal. "They're on collision courses," Lieutenant Doe shouted. "All ships evasive maneuvers." The human spacecraft discharged their weapons at point-blank range, targeting the weak points they'd identified in the Kang hull design. And then, instead of pulling away, many continued their trajectory, deliberately crashing into the larger alien ships. "They're sacrificing their pilots to cause damage," Lieutenant Doe said in horror. "Why would any species do this?" Admiral Tay watched as 3 Kang destroyers were disabled by these kamikaze tactics. The humans had correctly calculated that the damage caused by a direct impact was worth the loss of a single ship and pilot. "They're using tactics no rational species would attempt," Lieutenant Doe continued. "Our combat simulations never accounted for deliberate suicide attacks." But Admiral Tay was beginning to understand. "They're not being irrational, they're being human. Check our historical databases for Earth's military history." Officer Sun quickly scanned the files. "Sir, throughout their history, humans have frequently employed self-sacrifice as a military tactic. They even have specific cultural concepts celebrating it. The blockade was failing. The human ships that weren't performing ramming maneuvers were deploying surprise weapons, modified satellites converted into orbital mines, electronic warfare devices that jammed Kang communications, and even primitive nuclear explosives, pushed to detonation by remote control. In his command chair, Admiral Tay finally grasped what made humans such dangerous opponents. "They function better under threat," he said quietly. "While other species become disorganized when faced with superior force, these humans somehow convert their fear into focused aggression. The Kang had evolved through careful, methodical advancement. Their military doctrine emphasized preservation of resources and minimization of risk. The concept of deliberately sacrificing lives for tactical advantage was alien to them. But to humans, survival sometimes meant risking everything. "Order a strategic withdrawal," Admiral Tay commanded. "Regroup. Head at the lunar observation post." As the Kang fleet pulled back, Admiral Tay stared at the blue planet below. These humans had gone from discovering alien life to driving back a superior force in less than 2 months. If they could do that, what would they accomplish given more time? For the first time, Admiral Tay considered a possibility that no Kang commander had ever faced. This might be a war they could not win through conventional means. "Begin preparation for the planetary annihilation option," he said grimly. "If we cannot conquer these humans, perhaps we have no choice but to eliminate them entirely." Little did he know that the humans were already planning their next move, and it wouldn't be defensive. 6 months had transformed humanity. The once divided planet now operated as a single fighting force, united by the common enemy among the stars. What Admiral Tay never understood was that humans had spent millennia fighting each other. They knew warfare intimately, and now they had Kang technology to enhance their natural abilities. Inside the captured Kang warship Defiance, General Su stood on the command deck, her weathered face reflected in the view screen. Around her, the crew, a mixture of military personnel and civilian experts from across Earth, worked at consoles once designed for alien hands. "Navigation check," General Su called out. "Coordinates locked, General," replied Navigator Jin, a former commercial airline pilot. "Kang Colony World Nexus is 12 hours away at current speed." General Su nodded, surveying the fleet displays. 6 former Kang vessels now flew under human command, each modified with Earth-made improvements. Behind them, 15 smaller craft carried boarding teams specially trained for the mission ahead. "Send the coded message to all ships," she ordered. "Operation Turnabout begins in 12 hours. The human fleet traveled through the cold emptiness of space, moving along routes mapped from stolen Kang navigational data. Each ship carried the hopes of a planet that had, against all odds, not only survived first contact, but managed to capture enough alien technology to take the fight to the enemy. On the Kang homeworld, Admiral Tay stood before the Imperial Council, his posture rigid despite his exhaustion. "You lost how many ships?" demanded Council Leader Mun, her voice sharp with disbelief. 23 warships and 42 support vessels," Admiral Tay replied. "The humans proved unexpectedly resourceful." "Resourceful?" another council member scoffed. "They're primitives. Their civilization has barely mastered basic spaceflight." Admiral Tay's jaw tightened. "With respect, they're not what we thought. They've adapted our technology at an alarming rate. My intelligence suggests they've even improved upon some of our designs." The council chamber erupted in dismissive murmurs. Leader Mun raised her hand for silence. "Admiral Tay, your failure at Earth is unprecedented in Kang military history. However, we recognize that you've had the most direct experience with these humans. You will remain in command of our defensive forces while we prepare a proper extinction fleet." Admiral Tay bowed stiffly. "The Colony World Nexus will serve as our forward base. I've already increased security there and—" An aide rushed into the council chamber, breaking all protocol. "Urgent message from Nexus, Admiral. Unknown vessels have entered the system." The tactical display sprang to life, showing ships approaching the colony world. Admiral Tay felt a cold dread as he recognized the configuration. "Those are our own ships," he whispered. "Impossible." Leader Mun stood abruptly. "No species has ever captured Kang vessels intact, but the identification codes confirmed it. The ships were indeed Kang in origin, yet moving in formation patterns no Kang commander would use. Unpredictable, seemingly chaotic, yet clearly coordinated." "How did they find Nexus?" Council Member Bok demanded. "That information is classified." "At the highest level," Admiral Tay closed his eyes briefly, "they must have extracted the navigational data from our captured ships. These humans are thorough in their intelligence gathering." On Nexus, panic spread through the colony as the human fleet emerged from hyperspace. The defensive garrison, never designed to repel a serious attack, scrambled to respond. Kang civilians, members of a species that had known only victory for generations, suddenly found themselves in the position they had put so many others in, under attack by a determined enemy. General Su's voice carried across all frequencies as the human fleet approached. "Attention, Kang colony. This is General Su of Earth. Your defense systems have been compromised. Your communication arrays have been disabled. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." The Kang commander of Nexus, a stubborn officer named Major Bin, refused to yield. "We are the Kang. We do not surrender to lesser beings." What followed was a demonstration of warfare that left the Kang defenders in disarray. The human vessels didn't follow standard attack patterns. They split into seemingly random groups, attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously, and employed electronic warfare that the Kang had never encountered. Within hours, the colony's defenses had collapsed, and human boarding parties had secured key facilities. The speed and precision shocked even veteran Kang officers. Admiral Tay, watching the reports from the homeworld, made a desperate decision. "Capture human soldiers," he ordered. "Bring them to the biological research facility. I need to understand what we're facing." 3 days later, Admiral Tay stood in the sterile observation room, watching through one-way glass as Science Officer Park conducted tests on the captured humans. "What have you found?" he asked. Officer Park looked up from her instruments, her expression troubled. "Something disturbing, Admiral. These humans, they're from what we would classify as a death world." "Explain." Officer Park displayed a holographic comparison of Earth with typical Kang colony worlds. Their planet has extreme environmental variations, from freezing poles to scorching deserts, from ocean depths to mountain heights. They evolved to survive in all these conditions. She highlighted human physiological features. Their endurance is remarkable. Their problem-solving is off our charts. But what's truly frightening is their evolutionary history. The display shifted to show prehistoric Earth, teeming with megafauna. For most of their development, they weren't the dominant species. They were prey for creatures much larger and stronger. They developed intelligence and cooperation merely to survive their homeworld's natural hazards. Admiral Tay stared at the images, understanding dawning. "So they evolved not as conquerors, but as survivors," Officer Park finished. "Their entire evolutionary history is one of overcoming superior predators. They developed tools, coordination, and strategic thinking just to stay alive. They don't think like us because they didn't evolve like us." She gestured to the captured humans, who despite their situation showed no signs of breaking. "We may be technologically advanced, but we were never apex predators on our world. We evolved in relatively safe environments. These humans..." She shook her head. "They're literally built for overcoming impossible odds." Admiral Tay turned away from the window, his confidence thoroughly shaken. "And now we've given them our technology." "Worse," Officer Park said quietly. "We've given them a reason to use it." Our invasion unified their planet in a way nothing in their history ever has. As if to punctuate her point, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. On the security monitors, Admiral Tay watched in disbelief as more human ships appeared. Near the homeworld, "How many ships did they capture?" he demanded. No one had an answer. No one had believed it possible that humans could not only repel an invasion, but mount a counter-offensive so quickly. No species in the known galaxy had ever adapted this fast. As Admiral Tay rushed to the command center, a chilling thought occurred to him. Perhaps the Kang had never been the apex predators they believed themselves to be. Perhaps they had simply never encountered a true predator species before, until now. The grand hall of the former Kang Imperial Palace gleamed with polished stone as Council Leader Mun approached the negotiation table. Her usual regal posture was gone, replaced by the slumped shoulders of defeat. Across from her sat the human delegation led by General Su, whose weathered face revealed little emotion. "Let the record show," Leader Mun announced, her voice carrying through the cavernous space, "that on this day, the Kang Empire formally surrenders to the forces of Earth." The words hung heavy in the air. Just 1 year after first contact, the Siwa. Unthinkable had happened. The Kang, conquerors of 17 systems, rulers of an empire spanning half the galaxy, had been defeated. General Su nodded, accepting the ceremonial sword offered by Leader Mun. Earth accepts your surrender. The terms are as discussed: immediate withdrawal from all occupied worlds, reparations to damaged planets, and the establishment of a demilitarized zone between our territories. Leader Mun's eyes narrowed slightly. And what guarantee do we have? That humans won't simply replace us as galactic conquerors? General Su's expression remained calm. Because conquest was never our goal. She gestured to an aide, who activated a holographic display. While your attention was focused on our main fleet, we sent diplomatic missions to the worlds you've subjugated. The display showed meetings between human representatives and various alien species, some insectoid, others reptilian, a few almost energy-based in form. All shared one common feature: they had lived under Kang domination. We've already established peaceful relations with 12 formerly occupied worlds, General Su continued. They've agreed to join what we're calling the Terran Protection Alliance, not an empire, but a mutual defense pact. Leader Mun couldn't hide her shock. You contacted our subject worlds while still fighting us? Multitasking is another human trait, General Su replied with a hint of a smile. We found your subjects quite receptive to the idea of freedom. In the observation room adjacent to the hall, Admiral Tay watched the proceedings with a mixture of bitterness and curiosity. Once the supreme military commander of the Kang forces, he was now a prisoner of war, permitted to witness the dismantling of everything he had fought to build. Later that day, to his surprise, a guard escorted him to a private meeting room where General Su waited. Admiral Tay, she acknowledged as he entered. Please sit. He remained standing. I prefer to face my defeat on my feet. General Su nodded, respecting his choice. I requested this meeting because I believe understanding is the first step toward lasting peace. You fought us, studied us, yet I don't think you truly understand why you lost. Your technology, he began. Was yours, she interrupted. We simply adapted it. No, Admiral, you weren't defeated by our technology. She rose from her chair and approached a window overlooking the capital city. Walk with me. To his surprise, they left the room and proceeded through a garden where other alien delegations were gathered. Members of species the Kang had conquered generations ago now moved freely, engaged in conversation with humans and each other. Do you know what all these species have in common? General Su asked. Admiral Tay observed them carefully. They evolved on worlds with fewer natural threats than Earth, like the Kang. Precisely. Your science officer's analysis was correct. Earth is what you would classify as a death world. Our planet tried to kill us countless times during our evolution. Predators larger and stronger than us, diseases that decimated our populations, natural disasters that wiped out entire civilizations. They paused beside a fountain, its water catching the light of the system's double suns. You were defeated by our nature, Admiral. Humans aren't exceptional because of strength or intelligence alone, but because we evolved as social predators who turn disadvantages into strengths. She gestured to a group of human engineers working with insectoid aliens on what appeared to be a new propulsion design. When faced with a superior force, most species surrender or flee. We adapt. When confronted with impossible odds, we innovate. When backed into a corner, we cooperate on an unprecedented scale. Admiral Tay considered her words. So you're saying we never had a chance? No, you had many chances. You could have approached us peacefully. You could have offered trade instead of conquest. You could have recognized fellow sentient beings worthy of respect. She turned to face him directly. Instead, you saw primitives. Easy targets, that was your first mistake. And the second, he asked, assuming that because we looked physically weaker, we were inferior. General Su smiled slightly. A common error when encountering humans. Our history is filled with physically stronger forces being defeated by human ingenuity and determination. 3 days later, representatives from 23 species gathered in the United Nations Assembly Hall on Earth. The room buzzed with dozens of languages, each being seamlessly translated through devices adapted from Kang communication technology. Admiral, Tay, still under guard but permitted to observe, watched as General Sue addressed the gathering. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history," she announced. "The Terran Protection Alliance is founded not on conquest, but on mutual respect and defense. Each member world retains its sovereignty while contributing to our shared security." The applause that followed seemed genuine, not forced as it had been under Kang rule. Admiral Tay noticed how the various species interacted with the humans, not with fear, but with something approaching admiration. Later, in a private viewing area, Admiral Tay found himself alone with General Sue one final time. "Your alliance won't last," he said, though without much conviction. "Different species have different interests. Eventually, conflict will arise." "Probably," General Sue agreed, surprising him. "Conflicts always arise. That's another human specialty. Managing. Disagreement without resorting to domination. We've had plenty of practice with our own species." She handed him a data pad. "These are the terms of your personal release. You'll be returned to your homeworld tomorrow." "Why?" he asked, genuinely confused. "I led the invasion of your planet. By your own laws, I'm a war criminal. Because humans understand something else the Kang never learned. The value of redemption." She met his gaze steadily. "Someone needs to lead your people into a future where they're not conquerors. Who better than the Admiral who has seen firsthand what lies beyond?" On his final night on Earth, Admiral Tay stood on a balcony overlooking a human city. Lights glowed in the darkness, traffic moved below, and in the distance he could see ships rising toward the stars, some human, some alien, all working together. General Sue joined him, their final conversation. "We didn't want to be conquerors," she told him quietly, "but we've always been survivors. Perhaps that's what makes us the true apex predators of the galaxy." Admiral Tay nodded slowly. "Not because you're the strongest, but because we adapt," she finished. "Because when pushed, we don't break, we transform." As his transport left Earth's atmosphere the next day, Admiral Tay looked down at the blue planet one last time. He had come seeking easy conquest, and found instead a species unlike any the Kang had encountered before, a species shaped by hardship into something remarkable. The Kang had traveled the stars looking for worlds to dominate. Humans had looked at the stars and seen new frontiers to explore, new challenges to overcome, new allies to make. Perhaps, Admiral Tay thought, the Kang could learn something from their defeat after all. Perhaps there was more than one way to be strong in this vast, complex galaxy, and perhaps the humans, with their strange mix of cooperation and determination, their ability to turn weakness into strength, really were the apex predators they had proven themselves to be.